Hopefully you guys like array and array lists, hash tables, all that fun stuff. If you don't, you're insane. Hash tables and arrays and lists and all the collection stuff will enhance any code you're making, make things scalable. It is probably the most influential skill, knowledge, I don't know what the hell you'd call it, to have, right? Yeah, I mean, to not use collections is like, I don't know, going to a sperm bank and shooting blanks or something. How do I know? So, I wanted to show you an array table. Oh, it's some crazy. Now, I don't know if it's underdeveloped or being developed or whatever it is, but there isn't a whole lot of actions. So I've made some actions for them, and they're pretty fancy. So I'm just going to show you this real quick, and it'll be pretty slight. We're not going to go too heavy. So let's say we want a whole bunch of arrays dedicated to something. Like you're almost making like a Google spreadsheet style thing, right? If I add an array list, but not the array list proxy, the array list table. You're probably thinking, what the hell is an array list table? And it's a way to organize your arrays and keep things neat and tidy. One of the cool things is I can create another object down here, and we can even call this our arrays. And let's make an array list proxy. And let's make another array list proxy. And let's make another array list proxy. Oh, let's make a fourth one. What the hell? Why not? I'm not even going to name these ones. I'm not going to use the reference. You can, and the array list actions and all that, you can still function the array list table with the array list actions as long as you name them. But I'm not going to bother doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go over to my manager here, and I'm going to say I have 3 columns, even though I made 4, but I'm going to put down 3. And I'm going to lock it. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add a new inspector. And I'm going to go down here. Alright, so the very first one, I'm going to drag him over, and he is going to be my header. But if he's my header, he should probably be strings. Right? So let's say, I don't know, you can make this 500 if you wanted to. Okay, so let's just let's go 3, right? And let's say we have the weapon, and these could be anything. I'm just randomly making things. We're going to say we have the damage, and we have the icon, right? And like I said, you can continue on those things, whatever. So essentially, what happens is this is your, like, so if you think of each array like a column, this is the title to the columns. So column 1 is going to be this guy. So he is the weapon. And what we're saying is he is going to be a string, right? Because this is the weapon name. I'm going to take this guy over, and he's going to go here. And what we're saying is he's the damage. Okay, so I'm going to set him to an integer or a float or whatever you want. And the last one is we're going to say the icon to this guy here, which means he needs to be a sprite. Alright, cool. So now let's close this window. We don't need 2 inspectors, and unlock this one. Unlock. Right, so I now have this. Pretty simple. This one component is now going to control all of my arrays. Right, now, for example, if we get into here and we say, okay, if this one's my weapon, let's give it 2. We'll say it has a dagger and a sword. I'm a sucker for the medieval shit, I guess. And okay, so we have damages. So the dagger damage, right? The indexes all have to line up. We'll say 5, and the sword is, 50. The sprites, and again, these all line up. So the dagger will just randomly choose some sprites, and the sword will choose something totally different. So we have that. So you can flush this out as some big data system. And notice, like, I'm not using any references. And like I said, you can use an array lists actions to individually control these. Alright, so let's use an FSM. And the actions that they have, I find, are shitty. So first one is we have 3 categories. We're going to add, right? So we have a string. So this is our new weapon. We have an integer. So this is our new damage. And we have a sprite. This thing doesn't have sprite, so I'm going to go object, go to the object type, go down to Unity Engine, select or find sprite. Okay, so now this is a new sprite. So if we're adding, let's add, for example, normally you would say probably get this using get FSM variables and stuff like that, but okay, so let's make a axe, and this damage is going to be super cool. Its sprite's going to be something totally different. There we go. So that's, now we're just adding to the table, right? And if I hit play, we'll see it loads, right? And obviously we don't get the information here, but if I go here, right, this guy's not changing because this is our header, but we can see we have added the axe, its damage, and its icon. Okay, cool. Let's get rid of that. What else can we do? Let's do array table get, and there's set, which is just like the add, but you're just setting one of the indexes, and I can show you that one too. So oh, I meant to get rid of this. I'll get rid of this because this part doesn't technically matter. So all we're doing is using the row, right? So for example, we can do array table contains. Alright, so we're going to use strings because that's what we're doing, and let's say a search. And when we get that, we're going to get our row. So what do we want to search for? Let's go. Let's look at, let's say the sword. I'm going to type that in. So again, normally you would do this programmatically, and so in this part's not going to be here. I'm going to get rid of this, or the column stuff. So oh, I also need to get rid of this little chunk here. Don't worry about this. Actually, you know what? Let's just fix that right now. Let's not confuse everybody. It's compiling. Now that it's compiled, there we go. So we have add a row. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to use that, right? So we're searching. We're going to search for a sword, and we get our row index. So that's what we want to get. And why did I not get rid of the result? God damn it. Alright, so as you can see now, it should be all cleaned up. So like the original actions iffy at best. Okay, so we know our system has these three, right? So again, we need to get a string type. Actually, I'm not even going to use vars. I'm just going to keep this empty. And we know the next one is an integer, and we know the last one is a sprite. So again, we need to go into here to set this up. Right, that. Right. So normally you would make these variables, but I'm not going to bother doing that. So what we're doing is we're going to search this guy. We're searching him for sword, and then we're going to get whatever index sword is at. We're going to get all the values, right? So we're not actually, our logic isn't referencing the arrays here at all. We're just talking to this thing. So we can see, okay, sword is at index 1. Let's go take a look. Yeah, index 1, sword. Okay, cool. So we go down to index 1, and apparently we have a whole pile of issues. So I need to fix that. Or if it's because I didn't use variables. There we go. Apparently you need to use variables. Go figure. Never would have guessed that. Normally it's not an issue. But anyway, so now we can see the new weapon is now sword, right? Because we're searching for sword. It's at index 1. We go to index 1, we get our sword. We get our damage, which is also index 1. And we get the dungeon tile set, which is this index 1. Right, same thing. So there we go. The get works. Let's use ArrayTables set. Right, so let's get rid of that for now. This time I'll use my variables. So let's look. Okay, so let's say, okay, dagger. We know it's at index 0. I know we'll use sword because we have to change indexes then. Right, and again we got to set up this little part. Right, so we know there's a string, and it is weapon name, and this is it's an integer, weapon damage. And we'll say the sprite object type, Unity engine, go down to the sprite, and this is weapon icon. So we want to set those, right? So ultimately we're gonna alter these things. So we probably don't want to actually change the name. Maybe we're just changing the damage. So I mean, you could use this. We could use it in conjunction with this, right? We're gonna say, okay, we're gonna get them at the same row, right? We can do the string, and we'll store that straight into the weapon name. We're not going to change it. The integer, no, I might as well just keep that all the same so we're not screwing anybody up. Unity engine and sprite weapon icon. Alright, so now let's int add stuff it in between those. We're going to take the damage and we're going to add that much to it. and then we're going to set them back in, right? So we should have our dagger, which will still be the dagger with the same icon, or we could change the icon too. Should now have some big crazy damage, right? So we go to it and we can see, oh, we're doing the sword, not the dagger, sorry. We're doing index 1, right? So index 1, so weapon, sword, damage. So index 1, sword. Sword new damage is our crazy damage that we got. And of course we didn't change the icon. So we get it. We did some changes and then we set it back in, right? But it's I said, now you can do all this with just the normal arrays. There's no problem with that. It's totally fine, right? And like I said, the array list actions will work with all this. But this is just a way, if you wanted to try to keep things a little organized, so you don't have, 500 of these on one object, you can break these things up and we can run different tables, right? Because now I've only got one component here and it's referencing my other tables. But the cool thing about it is the array table contains, right? Because you could search, right? And you don't have to search just the name, right? Like I could search for the icon and it'll tell me which one it is, or I can search for the damage and it'll give me all the rest of them, right? So your array table contains is kind of like the array list contains, but you're doing it to all the arrays at once and saying, hey, this is your result, this is it. So those are array tables